Thanks for joining us tonight, everybody. We'll go ahead and get started. And the agenda for tonight, like we so often do this time of year, we talk about situations we might be more likely to experience with either perhaps technical fouls, intentional fouls, ejections, either a fan or a coach or a player. And uh, those kinds of things this time of year because at the end of January and beginning of February, it's I call it the dog days of basketball season where we've all been probably working close to 40, 50 games or something already. And so we're a little tired. Coaches are maybe kind of frustrated with the parents, and there's not just another week or so of the season left. It's a whole other, 5 to 6 weeks left of the season. Players might be frustrated with their coaches, they might be frustrated with their teammates, and the parents, they just hate everybody. And so until you get towards maybe middle of February, when districts are just around the corner, everybody can often be a little on edge. And so I think it's helpful for us to kind of go through some of those situations tonight, maybe watch a couple plays and some film that we have. And the cat doesn't come around until I actually start talking. So I'm just going to ask her to move and we're going to continue. But before we get into all that, I want to turn it over to Jim because congratulations are in order for a former MDAO member. Jim, take it away.
Yeah, let's talk a little football before we get into basketball. Our very own Sean Smith, you may have read, is going to be the referee for the Super Bowl this year. Um, Back in 2003, it was the first year I officiated football. Went on the field knowing nothing, because I really wasn't even that big of a football fan. And in my second game, I worked with Sean. And the following year, I was added to the crew. It was actually Mike Shogan's crew. Uh, and Sean Smith was the line of scrimmage official on it. He had just moved into the GLIAC in Division Two. Um, um, the next year, Sean stopped doing high school because the GLIAC did not permit their officials to work high school at that time. He moved into, the Mid-American and Big Ten Conference in short order and went from being a back judge to a referee in the Big Ten, and then very quickly to the NFL. And here we are in 2026, and he is the Super Bowl referee, which I would, you know, say is probably the highest officiating level in the United States. Um, that is the pinnacle, being the referee of the Super Bowl. So he's a local guy, still lives and works full time in Detroit. And let's all watch and root for him to have a perfect game uh, in a couple of weeks. But it just shows you for any of you newer officials, starting out here, the sky is the limit.
And I just want to say I don't know Sean as well as Jim does. I've never had a chance to work with him, but I have had an opportunity to interact with him, either from him speaking at some of our past MDAO meetings after he had made it to the NFL, or just kind of shaking hands with him when he was at maybe a local football game or something because his kids happened to have attended that particular school. And the one thing I will say about him is he has not forgotten where he came from. He is a salt of the earth kind of guy. He just more than happy to give back, to where he came from. And it's such a cliche, but it couldn't have happened to this opportunity couldn't have come around for a better guy, I don't think.
And I would say this, he has told me he wants to start officiating high school basketball again. It might be a couple of years because he's, gotta stay healthy and at the top of the mountain, while it's his turn. So, but you still might see him in gyms. I've every year I seem to run to Sean, once a year at one of my games, just there to watch.
Yeah. All right. So, for those of you who are so congratulations to Sean, and for those of you who are logging on while we're talking about Sean Smith, please type your name and MHSA ID number into the chat box. All right. Um, we just kind of want to get started here, briefly about this time of year, and Jim and Rick, I just kind of want to maybe just have a brief conversation before we get into the actual, hey, when you have a technical foul, this is what you do. Um, Having an awareness that people might feel a little bit more frustrated this time of year. What are some things that, we can do as officials while, working a game? If having those conversations to perhaps de-escalate situations. And I'll start with one lesson that I had to remind myself of last night actually. Um, the game I was working, it was in the third quarter, and the team was winning by maybe 10, 15 points, and the foul counts in the third quarter were against them 5-0. And the coach started to ask me about calling it on one end versus calling it on the other end, or and he was asking about a specific kind of play. Um, and I then said something along the lines of, "Hey, coach, I understand. The foul counts are 5-0. We're keeping an eye on it. We don't want to miss it." And he kind of interrupted me and said, "I haven't said anything about that. I haven't complained one bit about the foul counts being low. I'm just talking about this specific play, you know." And that reminded me that we might assume we know what that coach is frustrated about or upset about, but don't assume the argument. Because now I'm not just trying to deal with his original complaint. I have now basically accused him of something he wasn't complaining about, and I had to kind of talk him down from that situation. And in that moment, I just said, you know what? You're right. You didn't say anything about that. I apologize for that. Keep talking about what your original concern was. And I had to kind of, backtrack a little bit. And so when we come into these situations and a coach is frustrated and you're having that conversation with them, if he just needs to talk, if he just needs to vent, and he's not being abusive or he's not being overly rude or he hasn't, accused, he hasn't insulted your integrity or something like that, or said something really bad, just let him the tree got the better of the cat at the time. Let him vent. Let him just kind of get it out. And don't assume you know what the argument is going to be. And oftentimes, as soon as they just get kind of, let it out, you're just going to say, okay, I hear what you're saying. All I can do is keep an eye on it moving forward. And sometimes that's all you need. And so that was one thing that I was reminded of as we get into this point of the season. Jim, Rick, I don't know if you guys kind of have any interaction kind of pearls of wisdom or anything like that you might want to share that maybe you've experienced recently.
Am I am I unmuted?
You are.
Um, just the other night, I was going into a game where I've had problems with one of the coaches in the past and recent technical fouls. And of course, who's the first person I see when I walk into the gym but this coach? And I said, well, I could walk by him and pretend like nothing's wrong, or I could go up to him and tell him nothing's wrong. So I went up with a smile on my face and stuck out my hand and said, "Hey, coach, how you been?" And it changed the whole tone of the interaction. And as a result, the game was lopsided and it went easy for us. But I went in anticipating problems, and there were none. So sometimes you just need to slow down and listen a little bit, like what Shane was suggesting. And the other thing at this time of year, I'm always a little, you know, it might be the second time around for some of these matchups. Maybe there was a problem the last time. Maybe it was just a small problem between two guys that they haven't forgotten about. Um, Ask some questions. How'd the last game go? Things like that when you can. If you know an assistant coach or something like that, get some information. Um, and the other thing, last thing I'll say is use all your senses. Listen, I can kind of pick up now on body language things, how kids react when they're fouled, how, is the kid when he gets to the free throw line breathing hard and all tensed up. If he is, you can step in there and just look him in the eye and, you okay?
Yep.
Are you good? And that little split second lets him reset. And so he doesn't run in and knock the kid down on the rebound, in other words. So, but yeah, use all your senses out there at this time of year. And this is truly the time of year to ignore the fans. They will only cause you problems.
Ignore them
Just
until you can't.
exactly.
And I'll share one good example where you just couldn't ignore this particular situation. But to Rick's point, yeah, as far as like interacting with them, that kind of thing, if they're getting on your case a little bit, just just blot them out unless it's so offensive or they're literally in your space. Ignore them until you can't anymore.
Let me chime in here. Rick mentioned, teams meeting for the second time. You don't know what happened the first time. So last night I had the Novi Northville boys game, and it went overtime, and that's a rivalry. The schools are right down the road from each other. Um, and in overtime now, Novi takes a lead that is not going to be overcome, and the Northville coach tells his team, don't foul, back off. And, Novi's guys dribbling the clock out, like you see so often in college and the NBA, and decides he's going to pass it to the teammate. And the teammate's dribbling for a few seconds, then decides, you know what, I'm going to drive in and dunk. So he drives and dunks with, like 1 second left. Now, you think the Northville players might remember that and that kid next game when they have the rematch? Probably. So those are the type of things that can set, players off and get a game off to a bad start. And you might not know about that as an official, but know when you have these rematches and now pretty much everything is the second time around in league games. Expect that. Um, One other thing I want to say, and this was last week, my partner in a game, Matt McDermott, had a nice de-escalation technique that I hadn't seen him use before, but there was a particular head coach who was, started off the first quarter basically calling out what he thought were calls, during the game. That's a foul, that's a travel. He hit him, just getting a little louder, and we'd all kind of say, hey, knock it off, calm down. And Matt had me his turn in front of him, and he says, Coach, he goes off, we're off to a real bad start here. He pauses and goes, do you want to start over? And the coach thought about the message that he was getting, took a breath, and said, "Yeah, sure, I do." And he was great the rest of the game. Um, just a nice way to send a message to a coach and taking, not just saying you're off to a bad start, saying we're off to a bad start. So sort of sharing the blame, even if really the blame shouldn't have been shared in reality, but got the coach to sit back and think about what he was doing and realize the path he was heading down and stop to cut it off.
I really like that when it comes at it from an indirect way, like you say, Jim, without any direct accusation to a coach, but still draws attention to the concern, to the issue. And we so often talk about whatever is happening in a game, it needs to be addressed. Now, how that gets addressed, that's, kind of where we make our money. Sometimes it has to be addressed with a technical, intentional, flagrant foul, but oftentimes it can just be addressed with a well-placed and a well-phrased comment. So those are just some kind of thoughts and tips kind of as we go along that we can do a lot to kind of de-escalate some things. And at one point, I wanted to emphasize to Rick, and I'll share a film later where I won't show you what happened before, but oftentimes really hard fouls, um, or a push or a punch or something like that, we say to ourselves, "Ah, that came out of nowhere. I have no idea where that came from." And then maybe if you watch the film later, you'll see something that you missed in game time. Point is a punch, a dead ball push, uh, those kinds of things, they don't come out of nowhere. There was something that started somewhere where somebody felt offended or wronged, and they don't feel like we were taking care of it, or that it wasn't being addressed in the way that the individual thought it should have been. So Rick talked about using all your senses. I couldn't agree more. Have your antenna up when you feel it in the game that, things are maybe tightening up a little bit, and see what you can do to kind of diffuse those situations.
You can almost feel it if you're engaged in the game. You can almost tell when it's turning. I can remember a time working AAU game, and I told my two partners that watch it. I got a bad feeling about this. Well, the game didn't get through halftime. There was a brawl. The parents poured out onto the floor. Local County Police got called. So, you can sometimes you just get the sense something's wrong. And even though we were paying closer attention, it wasn't going to stop what was going to happen. And at that point, you become note takers. And it's nice when everybody in the gym ends up on the floor because there's no one not to throw out.
Yeah. Uh, and when we arrive at a location, we don't hope or we don't want, and we don't certainly necessarily always expect something bad is going to go happen. But who is the most important person for us to make contact with when we're at that location? The site administrator. Sometimes that's the AD, sometimes it's an assistant athletic director, and sometimes it's somebody else. But basically, you want to know if somebody needs to get ejected, if something really goes sideways, who is that person? Where are they going to be? Sometimes the athletic director will say, I have four things going on tonight, and I will do my best to be in here every so often that I can be. And then you say, we hear you. Do you have a backup who's always going to be in the gym? Basically find somebody who will be in that gym if something goes sideways and you need to get a hold of them. Okay. So I want to just shift gears real fast, and I want to talk about, you know, warnings versus technical fouls, and then when we have a technical foul, we're just going to talk about the mechanics briefly about it and perhaps some exceptional situations. And I will share one good film that I'm interested to see if anybody knows how it should be handled. Um, so a warning versus a technical foul. A warning is a tool in your toolbox, just like a technical foul is. A warning might be a good warning for a coach, might be where that coach just keeps chirping, 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 and is yelling at you, you screaming your name across the court. Shane, Shane, you got to call it. And it's not the first time. This is maybe second quarter or something, and he's been on your case all night, and you just haven't had a chance to de-escalate or haven't been able to. That's a great situation where you can blow your whistle, step onto the court. Coach, that's your warning. Table, Coach for White's been warned. Please mark the book and the time and the quarter. And then you say, Jim, Rick, Coach for White's been warned. And you make sure everybody in the gym knows. It's not something to be done on the sly. It is meant to send a message. So everybody knows that if and when that individual receives a technical foul for unsporting contact later in the game, everybody knows he's been warned and has been given a chance. Jim, Rick, anything else to add to, warnings?
I would just, the progression, talk first, then warn. And I don't think enough of us use that warning. So, you might want to think about that during these tough times. Then you penalize. Um, but you probably need to have talked to them and warned them in most cases. Now, sometimes we skip that warning stage. It just goes right to technical foul when they F-bomb you or something like that. But progressively.
Yeah. And a warning prior to a technical foul is not required, just like Rick said. Sometimes if the violation is just so severe or bad, you just got to go straight to attack. So technical fouls, we've talked about it before, but again, if there's a singular in high school, if there is a singular unsporting technical foul, and I emphasize high school because college rules are different, let's not get that mixed up. But if there's a singular technical foul in high school, um, the offended team will get two free throws and the ball out of bounds, whether or not they had the ball, whether or not they had team control at the time of the technical foul, opposite the scores table at the division line. Plain and simple. Anybody can shoot it. Anybody on that team can shoot a technical foul. They can sub somebody in to shoot that technical foul. That's fine. Uh, that person could then get subbed right back out. Again, remember the only rule is if you get subbed out, you have to sit for a tick. But if you get subbed in, and then the coach is like, and then somebody else for the other team gets subbed in, oh, wait a second. No, 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 no. I want to get this person back out of here. They can take him out right away without the clock ticking. They just can't put him back in without that clock ticking once. If you get subbed out, you have to sit for a tick. So when I mean anybody on the other team can shoot the technical foul free throws, anybody can shoot the technical foul free throws. Plain and simple. The other common situation is team player A1 and player B1, they get in each other's faces and they start talking to each other. Okay, fine. Boop, boop. You each have a technical foul. That is a point of interruption. You report those technical fouls to the table. It's the point of interruption. Wherever we were in the game at that time, that's where we pick it up again. If we were maybe it was during a shooting free throw, well, you line up and you shoot those free throws as if technical fouls never happened. If a team was getting ready to inbound the ball, that same team gets to inbound the ball. If team A had team control and the both players received the technical fouls during a live ball, well, team A gets the ball out of bounds closest to where they had possession. It's nice, it's simple, it's easy. Um,
When Shane says closest to where they have possession, it's at one of the eight spots.
Yes.
4 spots in the front court, 4 spots in the back court.
Thank you. Uh, and so I am going to share my screen, and Jim, please forgive me. Uh, you might recognize this scenario, but uh, full disclosure, I was watching this game. My kid was playing in this game, but I want to see before we tell you how
Chuck
you
is here.
mitigate the situation. I want to see if anybody is brave enough to come off mute and let us know how it's handled. I have it muted so the sound won't distract us. So here, just 1 second here. Okay, see, can I get this out of the way? Yes, I can. All right. So White has the ball. There's going to be a drive to the basket. We have a player control foul by the lead here. Easy call. Easy call. Kid got there, established position. He grew roots. He took the charge. Now,
Easy
let's
call,
look.
bad mechanics.
let's look at this. Let's look at this though right here. He sees players are getting up. Where is his head? He's walking by it, but his head is on this action the whole time. Because until those players get up and they get disengaged, especially after a hard collision, um, don't leave the scene of the crime. And if you're walking past the scene of the crime, make sure you're looking at the scene of the crime. All right. And see, there's a little bit of a jostle, a little bit of whatever. The lead's still looking. The lead is still watching. All right. Now watch this player here who drew a very good player control foul, but watch what he does. A little bit of a taunt to the player where he drew it from. All right. And so we have a dead ball technical foul for taunting on that player who just drew the technical foul. Now, I want you to, if I remember right, I think it's this individual right here, the blonde haired kid in number 11 white. Watch what they do. They just saw this kid get a technical foul. They taunt right back. And so the lead, he's on a roll. They both get a technical foul. So now we have a player control and we have 3 dead ball technical fouls, one by the team in black and 2 by the team in white. And again, full disclosure, right now we have Jim here thinking, all right, what do we got? Now, I also want to just commend the that official and Jim here. Bef he's not in a hurry. He's he's not running to the table. He's not trying to get, just process the situation as fast as possible. He walks up to his partner, Jim in this case, and he starts to tell him what he has and who he has it on. Because he has in his head, he's got 4 fouls he has to report. And before he slows down and he starts talking to his partner. And so this is where before again, I'll pause here in just a second and I want to see if anybody can let us know how we will resume the game. I want to give Jim an opportunity to just kind of recount that situation, and that's the end of the film. But I want to give Jim an opportunity to kind of talk about what this conversation was like. What was the content of the conversation?
Well, Chuck, who's on, Chuck can chip in too. He's on this. So, but Chuck came and said, "All right, we've got technical foul on whatever the numbers were." He went through it. First we had the player control, then we have the technical foul on black, and then we have 2 on white. So we have 2 technicals on white, 1 on black. So we have an imbalance. So we have black's gonna, and I go, okay. So we have we're going to, come back with two free throws. Um,
Yep. So Chuck, I see you on here. Any, I guess, what was your thought process like from the initial player control call to seeing that interaction, occur?
Um, I guess, I mean, you saw what I do. I always slow down. I've always said that. But I think the biggest thing, and I pre-gamed it again last night in a game. If we have a technical foul, you got to talk to at least one of your partners to run through what you've got so you're going to be on the same page. That couldn't have been a more easy player control foul to call. Frankly, in that situation, there was nothing. I think, Jim, you might agree. There was nothing in that game that was challenging or uh, leading up to that. That one was one of those cases where it really came from nowhere. So I think slowing down and communicating with at least one of your partner, in that case, it would have been nice for all three of us to have been in the conversation to say what we got and what we're going to do. So I think that's the gist of it.
yeah, this happened. I think it was in the first quarter still. It may have been early in the second, but
Hmm.
I think it was still the first quarter. This
Well,
was
no,
like,
because there would have been the third quarter because they're going towards the home
oh
bench.
yeah, was it that? Well,
That's true. Yep.
yeah, yeah, it was early then. Yeah.
But let's take the alternative. Let's say Chuck had let the taunting action by number three Black go, and just reported the player control foul. What could that lead to if that is not addressed? White's gonna White's gonna White's gonna think they got to take matters into their own hands, and you know, it. This is the kind of action, this is the kind of taunting action that needs to be addressed when it occurs. Um,
See, I can tell you on this, I didn't notice the black guy clapping because he had his back to me at the time, but I sure as heck saw the two, players on white come running up. And if Chuck hadn't, called it on them, I've got my whistle right there and in my hand. So, you
yeah.
know,
And so just to reiterate, how do we resume the game? So we report the fouls of the order in which they occurred, and we adjudicate them in the order, more or less in the order in which they occurred. So we report that player control. Now, normally that would result in black ball at the end line out of bounds. But then Black has received a unsporting technical foul dead ball. Had it stopped there, White would have gotten the ball after they shot two free throws at the division line. However, their team now had two technical fouls, and basically what happens is you report all the fouls, but you do not shoot six free throws. You basically take the difference. And in this case, it was two by White, one by Black. You take the difference, which leaves you one technical foul for White. And so Black would end up shooting two and then getting the ball at the division line as if there had only been one dead ball technical foul on White. Um, if there had been, four technical fouls, two and two, then we go from point of interruption because the dead ball technical fouls, it was the same number. So, and then the point of interruption would have been Black on the end line out of bounds. Since I'm still sharing, I just want to share with everybody this is old, but it's still relevant and pretty accurate. It's on our website. I will be sending this out via email. I send it out every year, and it talks about if there's two flagrant fouls, what happens? For this one, A1 and B1, they get in a fight. They start swinging at each other. They both get flagrant fouls. They're ejected. Again, point of interruption, just like two technical fouls at the same time. Uh, Same kind of a situation. There's a fight. A1, A2, B1, B2, equal numbers, point of interruption. And it goes through all the different scenarios. You have a different number, two versus one. What happens and how do you resume the play? And it goes through just about every, including somebody comes off. What's the penalty off the bench? It kind of goes through all of this. And so when that comes out with the recording of this meeting, I strongly, even if you've seen this one before, we don't experience these situations very often. I really strongly recommend that you go through it and just kind of flip through it, refresh your brain. Hopefully, this will never happen to you again, or hopefully, it'll never happen to you. But when it does, our brains are running fast and we want to be able to slow down. Um, so see here, I want to pull up another video.
Hey,
And
just to put a bow on that last play, I
yeah,
want to say something that's kind of funny that happened. As after I reported, Jim was standing there in front of the coach whose kid on the Bloomfield Hills team. The coaches says to us, "What's the kid supposed to do?" And Jim and I simultaneously said, "Walk away." And it was Jim and I are still laughing about that because that's a coach saying that, for crying out loud. Are you kidding me?
yeah,
So there are only a couple clear heads in the gym. So
yeah. Walk away, walk away. Um, so I am going to now share this one. Let me share my screen again. And this one involves me and Rick, and I think we've talked about this one before. I'm going to slow it down here because I know sometimes it doesn't come through very easy here. All right, so White has the ball, and let's see, let me speed up a little bit. There's going to be a drive to the lane here, and Rick is in the trail. I'm in the lead, and we are going to end up having, this is not my camera work, by the way, so don't blame me. I'm going to have a no call. I had verticality on the defense, White going into him. I got nothing. So the player who drove into the lane, he crashes into, in my opinion, a vertical defender, and he goes down to the ground. And don't watch this action here. Don't watch the loose ball. Watch the player in white. And I'm watching this right here because I know Rick and our center here, they got this action. I'm making sure this guy gets up without any issues. He gets up, and I don't see White instigate anything. And he just gets up, and you'll see. And I have a dead ball contact, technical foul on 11 White. Now, what you're going to see here is the camera just kind of goes all over the place. But the coach for Black, he whistles and he is signaling to his team, and you'll see him like he's like telling them to stop, stop, no one do anything, don't be stupid. And I appreciate that. And so again, yeah, like I said, don't get on me about the camera work. So me, Rick, and the partners here, because I had questions, you know, I called a live ball, excuse me, I said dead ball. I call, a live ball foul. And so, I have in my head is, are we going to go intentional, technical, what do we have here? And you'll see the time on here, it's like 3 minutes. We were talking about it good and long. And what we should have done, and we kind of did, we sent the teams to their benches. Anytime that you have to have a conversation that's going to be any length of time, send the team to their benches. Separate them, get them off the court, Don't have them wandering around because after a situation like that, if they're wandering around, you're asking for trouble. Get them to their own corners, get them to their own benches, send them to the bench, and then talk about it. Even if, and see, we're still talking about it, about a minute later, and then finally, um, I'm gonna come and see normal playback, and we're just kind of talking about what we have going on here. And I want to see what I am going to report here because I can't remember. Here we go. I mean, we were talking for a good minute. It felt like forever. And so asking question, I'm just like, get back. I'll make sure everybody knows. And I come up with a live ball technical foul. Rick, do you remember this? Did we have because I didn't call
I do remember it. I thought the discussion was around upgrading, it from a common foul to an intentional and maybe even a flagrant.
this is why I have to write myself notes. And so for no other reason, the one lesson to take away from this is get the teams to their benches when you have to talk and you have to figure things out. What was the status of the ball at the time of the infraction? Was it live? Okay. So I think what I had here was we had a technical foul, some taunting, some interaction by Black that
Okay.
uh, taunted um, White into that push. And so we have a tech
That's right.
and an intentional foul. Now, because they're different fouls, they're not two flagrants, they're not two techs, we actually have to shoot two free throws for White because of the technical foul by Black that
Okay.
baked
And the fouls did
11.
not occur in the same dead ball period.
Right.
These were live ball fouls. So we lost time. So they're separate events.
Yep. And so we actually, because of the two different kinds of fouls and because, live ball situation, and that's what was baking our noodles was, are we going to shoot them? Do they offset? How do we resume play, etc. And so, it would be the technical fouls, and then it would technical foul free throws, but White doesn't automatically get the ball out of bounds because we had that intentional foul push after the fact, which would then have Black getting the ball out of bounds. So, what I will say about this situation here is, and I don't have it on film right now to share, but that player by Black, number 5 there was a dead ball out of bounds prior to this play, and none of us saw it. There was an interaction between him and 11 White, and it was a situation where it was somebody pointing up to the scoreboard, and it wasn't a friendly conversation. And because none of us saw it, none of us knew to step in and attend to it. And then this happened shortly thereafter. Yeah, I remember now. 5 is standing over him a little bit after that, and then 11 gets up. So that was the tech, and then the intentional foul here. So that's what the situation was. But to the original point, it doesn't come out of nowhere. I looked back at the film later and I saw that there was interaction between them on the previous play. We just didn't see it. We didn't have our senses up enough. So, um, see here. Let me minimize that. All right. I'm going to share this one. This one is recent. This one is local, and so if we know anybody, we don't need to speak bad because, we could be the next person to be involved in it. All right, so we have here fourth quarter, about a minute, a half a minute to go. Team in white is up three. And let me slow it down just a little bit. Now, ignore the lane violation by the home team. They get their offensive rebound, shot gets blocked. All right. Now, so far, so good. Good positioning by the trail behind the play. And he has a foul. Fine. He has a foul on the home team. I don't know. Let's see here. They wouldn't be shooting because that would just be their third foul. And so far, so good. He's in, remember what we talked about before with Chuck's situation? Don't leave the scene of the crime. Make sure everybody gets up safe and sound and disengages. And if you're walking by, at least keep watching. He is now looking at this white player. And look at these two here. And his back is now, he can't adjudicate this. He has no knowledge of what's happening. He is fixated on this person who is a little miffed about the call. Had he stopped just 5 feet back, and that's the 5 feet, and what you see happen potentially could have been avoided. And they're squaring off. They are still squaring off. And now we got somebody coming off the bench. And now we got a coach trying to come off the bench. And he still doesn't know, he still doesn't see it. Coaches coaches are allowed to come off the bench to take care of their own player, to help kind of alleviate the situation. So that coach coming off the bench automatically is not a technical foul. Now we have a partner coming in here. Potentially the situation can still be de-escalated. But now we got a white player grabbing the back of the neck of a player in back. He is now turned around. He now sees what's going on. Now, this official grabs that kid. What I'm going to tell all of you, think twice about putting hands on a player. And I'll give you a scenario. If you grab and you restrain one player and that player gets sucker punched by somebody on the other team and he can't protect himself because you were trying to restrain him, that's not a good situation. So my recommendation to you is, depending upon the situation, how far the situation has how intense it's gotten, come in, have a presence, maybe step in between two people to like just kind of break it up. But I would think twice before putting your hands on a player. I'm gonna let it keep going. And he tried to get in there because he saw what was happening, but now the black player comes in on him on an opposite player. There's another coach here trying to do the right thing. This coach is trying to do the right thing. And now look, he is between one, two, three, four, five, six, but the situation's out of your control. There's nothing you can do about it at this point.
Note taking.
Yet, note taking. Stand back, start looking at who did what to whom. That is all you can do. And we got people coming off the bench. Now we got a security guard here trying to get that original kid who came off the bench under control. We got one official here. I lost track of where the other official went. He's still in the middle. Again, that's what the security guards are for. That's what the coaches are for. You're note taking. Presumably, the third official is off scene note taking. Same thing. He's trying to come in here and just stay back because you have to write up this report later. And if your nose is, if you're real close to the action, you can't, write a good report because you don't know what happened. You just know it was a fracas and it was yeah, so here's the third official. He was down here. Now at this point, you've got one official going up to the table. You got one official doing this. You got one official here. At this point, all three officials should be maybe off up here by themselves, observing together and watching what's going on. What's this gentleman down here going to say? What's going? I mean, he's starting to do some action, but his partners don't know what he's doing, what he's saying. And his back was to everything while he's having a conversation with the table. And unfortunately, that kid has to leave in handcuffs. All right, and now they're together. It looks like a decision has been made that, the game is over. In this situation, the game is definitely going to be over. But you know, who's the site administrator? Have you communicated that directly to the site administrator, or are you just walking off the court? So I don't bring this play up to get on anybody, but I bring it up to show you how things can go wrong when a few things that we all have the power of don't leave the scene of the crime. Keep your eye on the players disengaged. Um, get back and observe what's going on, as opposed to trying to break up the fight. Um, probably only bad things can lead to that. Uh, we can't always prevent a situation like this, but sometimes we can. Jim, Rick, I feel like I've been talking a lot. I want to give you a chance to kind of bring up any points that I may have missed.
I don't really have anything to add.
Yeah.
The only thing I'd say, Shane, is about this fight is it's an example of how things can go south in a big hurry.
Yes.
And um, so I guess what we're saying to everybody with the tone of the meeting is be a little hyper attentive over the next couple weeks and, look for the clues, stay at the scene of the crime. Um, uh, Try to head something off. Be good dead ball officials.
Yep. Let's see here. We're at 7 o'clock. I have one more clip I would like to share. Uh, and then we'll just talk about like when you have something like this happen, what needs to be done after as far as like writing a report goes. I believe I shared this one before in the past, but it's just a really good example in my opinion. Uh, look at me down here, and do you remember what we talked about when Rick said, ignore the fans, just ignore the fans? And I said, ignore the fans, until you can't, you know, kind of like the old Roadhouse thing, be kind until it's not time to be kind. Don't like, you can ignore this action. This is just kind of, just kind of whatever. Now slow down the action. We have an individual who is in the front row, and maybe he thought I should have called a kickball on white or something like that, if I remember right. and I call a kickball. Pretty good balance, in my opinion, on one foot. And I'm right here. And the next thing I know, I turn around and I'm like, what are you doing here? You should not be here. You should not be 6 inches away from me complaining about a call. That's when you had he stayed in his seat and he had argued about the call, this or that, and he had stayed in the front row. I couldn't care less. But he gets up in my face like that. That's easy. Now, I knew right where the game administrator was sitting. And the first thing I do, I say to myself, I don't want to lose the individual. I don't want to get mixed up. And I say to myself, you know, and there's the game administrator. What's the shirt is he wearing? Who is it? What did he do? And partner is doing a good thing, great thing, getting them to their bench. I think a timeout might have been called, but if this gentleman doesn't leave quickly, it's a good time to have them go to their bench until he's gone because you don't restart this game until that person leaves the gym. And now, fortunately, he's leaving without too much interaction, too much other concerns. But yep, no timeout. We just sent them to their bench and we're ready to go. So I just wanted to kind of point out like, okay, we talked about players, we talked about coaches, we talked about kind of, some of those other interactions. Sometimes with the fans, you know, it's you got to deal with what you got to deal with. Now, I just want to share briefly about writing a report. Um, and as far as report writing goes, um, there are actual official report writing guidelines, and just want to go through some of them here briefly. Um, Keep it simple. Use simple language. You're not Ernest Hemingway, just player A on sporting technical foul, rules reference. He said this to me at such and such time of the game. He was ejected, or whatever the case might be. Make it look good. Don't have it be run on sentences and paragraphs. This one is one that comes up a lot. A quote is a quote. If a coach said, Shane, you're fucking terrible, you put in the report, coach for team A said to referee Shane Buys, quote, and you put in quotes, Shane, you are fucking terrible. He used the F bomb. You don't use, asterisks or whatever. You use the actual language as vile as it may be. You use the actual language that was used. Um, Basic facts. Um, describe, what happened, and they'll ask for actual, player numbers, a coach's name. That's one thing that if you have to eject an assistant coach, make sure before you leave, like, because usually it's easy to find the head coach if he's somebody you have to eject, but an assistant coach, you might not know who it is. You can ask the table, hey, listen, who is the assistant coach there? I'll need it for the report. What's his name? Because they will ask in the report. Um,
Let me just chip in here,
yes,
Shane. And,
please.
I had to eject a player earlier in the year who had a second technical foul, and I just went up to the table after and said, "Hey, can you write down a sheet of scrap paper for me? The name and number of the player I ejected. His number, whatever. It was number 35. Can you write down his name for me?" And I had, you know, verify. I had looked in the scorebook to see what his name is, but we had more time to play. I might not remember his name, so she wrote it down and gave me a little scrap piece of paper, so I had it for the report.
Yep. And that keeps you from having to try to remember it while you officiate the rest of the game. One thing I want, it also talks about like, report who you were, were you the referee, were you the umpire, football back judge or whatever the case might be. Um, Include, information that's presented to you. Maybe you, the referee, are submitting the report, but you getting the information from the umpire. You won, and you would say you won. Jim Dorman, reported to me that such and such happened, or such and such was said to him, and that's why he was thrown out. Make it professional, for the love of God. Please proofread your report. Run it through a quick spell checker or something. Um, Keep a copy for your report, and it says it in here, but do not just write what happened. Do not infer anything. So, for example, don't say that player A1 seemed agitated or player A1 was agitated. You don't know if he was agitated. You can't say how or what he was feeling. All you can say is player A1 pushed player B1 to the ground in a violent manner, um, and was assessed a flagrant technical foul. You know, don't ascribe things that you can't that aren't objective. Things that are subjective. So don't make subjective statements. And Jim, you're the lawyer. Am I stating that clearly enough? Just the facts,
Yeah,
Jack, kind of a
just
thing.
write what you see and what you hear.
Yeah. There's also this is an old points of emphasis, but it's still relevant. Again, read through these. This is, some other additional information about, the fights and all that kind of thing. Oh yeah, here, information elaborating the facts, offering opinions or providing unnecessary commentary are not appropriate. How
You
do
know,
you go ahead?
oh yeah, I was gonna say there's also a point on the report where you have to report whether there was contact made with an official. And
Yep.
I bring this up because some of you may have seen it circulating on, the internet now about a basketball official in another state that actually took a flop and faked being hit by some player. Don't do that.
Yeah. Don't do that.
But if you are contacted, put it in the report. There's a box to check and a place to describe it.
Yep. So how do we go about filling out a report? So you go to the MHSA website, you log in here, and you go to your MHSA tools, go to official services, officials reports, and uh, you just simply you go to a new report. And this is what the screenshot looks like. Ejection. I will throw out here, and I've put in praise. If you got a school that, God, they just do something wonderful for either officials or just exhibit great sportsmanship, they deserve to be recognized for that. I don't think we as officials use this enough. You can share that, but school report, like it's a report of concern. Maybe there was no objection, but maybe the school wasn't really helping issues out during your evening. But it goes from, the sport, the level, the date, time, location, reported school, opposing school. This is a searchable box. It's going to ask you who your partners are. Here's that situation. Did spit at, hit, slap, kick, push, or make intentional aggressive physical contact with an official during this incident? Yes or no. You have to select some of these things. And then down here, this is where you write the report. And I'll just share one very quick one here. This is one that I was working a game for Malcolm, and I just shared with Malcolm the report I submitted. And it can just be this simple. With 2:46 remaining in the third quarter, and Arts and Tech Academy of Pontiac leading 41-23 over Pontiac Academy of Excellence at the Academy, a disturbance in the crowd. spilled onto the court that caused the game to be halted. After approximately 10 to 15 minutes, and while security was emptying the gym, assistant ATAP AD Janelle Bradley informed the officiating crew that they were suspending slash ending the game and that they would follow up with the Academy of Excellence Administration. Um, and so in this case, I followed this under sportsmanship as no other option, seemed appropriate, because the ATAP administration, they were great that night. They handled it beautifully, in my opinion, and they treated us well all night. And so I kind of wanted to make sure that the assigner knew that it wasn't really meant to be a bad reflection at all on ATAP, but it was a crowd situation where, hey, listen, the game had to end. It's something that the MHSA and needs to know about. It's something that the assigner needs to know about, but it wasn't, the classic ejection or anything like that. Um, and
Shane,
so go ahead, Rick.
Shane, I'd like to add something right there. If you ever get those end of a game situations, game management needs to make the decision to end the game. They may do it with your input, but you do not have the authority to end the game with time on the clock. So make sure you get game administration in on that discussion and have them make the decision, if appropriate, to end the game.
Rick, I couldn't agree more. I had another situation some years ago, and a disturbance from the crowd kind of spilled down onto the floor a little bit, and both teams were kind of off in the corners while they were trying to alleviate and get control of the situation. And at the time, the AD came up to me and said, "Hey, call the game. We're done. We're getting our asses kicked out here. We don't have enough security here. Call the game." And I said, "You got it." Um, but it's one of those things where maybe the AD comes up to you and says, can we continue the game? And you're like, no, because everybody's ejected. So it might be a situation like that too. Um, but yeah, get the site and that's why it's so important to have a relationship with that site administrator at the beginning of the game, not when things go sideways. So we didn't go through all the potential situations, but I hope like this will kind of help get you through some perhaps tough situations and perhaps make some of those tough situations a little easier. You know, keep a five alarm fire, keep a one alarm fire from turning into a five alarm fire kind of a situation. Um, uh, I'll be sending all of this out, including the recording of this meeting and these resources in an email, if not tomorrow, day after. And so review those. Take your time to review those. They're helpful. Jim, Rick, anything for the good of the group?
I saw one question in the chat from who asked about the your fan ejection, where that's a foul on charge to any team, and no, it is not. Um,
Good question.
now, if it's anyone on the bench, of a team, yeah, that's going to be a technical foul that's indirectly charged to the head coach. But no, just a spectator, that's just an ejection. Don't let, you know, they're not part of the official team party. So,
Right.
Yeah. Very good question. And thanks I missed that in the chat.
Sorry I'm late. Can I ask a question?
Yeah. Go ahead, Bear.
Uh, Hey, listen, bench decorum. Uh, I had a couple games this season already where the bench on both sides of the team were busy clapping and yelling defense, defense, defense. And my understanding that they're not allowed to do that. I mean, I'm still looking up something to confirm that. But they're cheering. This is during the game. And when their team has the ball or coming down on the opposite side of the floor, they're constantly cheering and they're doing this defense, 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 defense. Everybody's doing it on the bench.
So is it like the D
Yeah.
up, that kind
Yes.
of stuff?
Yes.
Um, I
and they're doing this, and the whole bench is reacting this way. So once again, in the past, I mean, it always been. I'm looking for that rule, but it's always been they can stand up here, sit back down, and just be silent on the bench.
Well, they don't have
um
to be silent on the bench.
I mean,
As long
they
as
can
they're not
cheer.
being unsportsmanlike, there's nothing wrong with that. Now, they can stand up only to, cheer,
Cheer
their player or, slap
for the
hands to
basket,
the
maybe.
guy who's coming out of the game, but they can't be standing during the game chanting like that. But if they're just sitting on the bench, I don't think there's
The
full support to anything that's not unsportsmanlike.
Yeah, it definitely it's a judgment in it's in our judgment to whether or not the cheering or the noise from the teammates uh is an unsporting act. And if they are, in my opinion, if they are cheering on their own team, to play defense when their own team's on defense, um, I'd be hard pressed to see how that would be, an unsporting act.
Okay, I get your point, but here's another situation.
Hmm?
You got the cheerleaders at the baseline, okay, and they're cheering during the opponent's free throw shot.
Are they directly underneath the basket or off to the side at least?
Well, no, they're off. Well, they're off to the side, but they're
Okay.
right by the basket, between the basket and the sideline, between the frame of the basket, working and the sideline, and they're
Um,
and they're cheering at the time of the opponent has the ball.
is the cheer, are they calling out the shooter by number or name, or is it just like let's go Trojans kind of a
Or
cheer?
let's miss that shot, miss that, that kind of thing. But no, they're not calling out the player by name nor by number. But this is during the opponent's free throw shooting.
I would have to look up to see if there's any particular specific reference, and it might be one of those situations where I might have to be there to kind of see it.
Mhm.
But you
Well,
know,
what I said was that they can't do it during when the opponent has the ball, and they can cheer after that shot is over. Once the shot is attempted, they can go and cheer all they want. Once again, this is the opponent, okay,
yeah. Oh, I understand.
and it's the home team that's cheering. You missed that shot or whatever they chant. I don't pay too much attention to their words, but just
Well,
that
I
they're
think
doing
with
it.
cheerleaders,
I let them
if
cheer,
they are representatives of the school, you do have the ability to tell them to knock it off.
but it's a
If it
cheer.
is something that's going to, if they're close and it's going to disconcert the shooter, I think you have the
And,
ability to tell them to knock it off, but you don't
and
really
and
have the
that's what's
ability
happening.
to
That's what's
penalize
happening.
anyone for that.
Yeah.
Right. I'm
Uh,
not penalizing.
Well,
Just tell them to not. They
but
can't do it during the
Yeah.
during the shooter.
I
When the
have
but
a
shooter has the ball.
but again, if you go there, if you start to tell them to knock it off, what if they don't? So
Well,
again,
like I said, I tell the captain of the cheerleaders that when I get the ball to the shooter, just you guys
yeah.
can't. The action has to stop.
But I guess my
And,
point
and
is
it, mhm.
you need to be prepared to back it up with consequences if they don't follow through with your request. And so one thing, so I would imagine, and I put it this way in my head, like when I have those situations, if they were sitting in the stands, is what they were saying bad enough to have a penalty, tell them to knock it off, or otherwise be addressed? Um, to Jim's point, the one difference is they are a representative of the school in that situation, so it's slightly different. But take a feel for the feel of the game. If it's perhaps a real chippy game, and perhaps you have to really tighten things up and there's already been some altercations, I would err on the side of having the temperature taken down and perhaps making the request. But if it's the kind of game where, you know, everything's fine, there's no real concern, no one seems bothered by it, we're just going with the flow, you know, be careful about going to borrow trouble.
Yeah,
So,
I think that's something I'd wait till someone brought it to my attention, for the opposing team. I don't think I would initiate action on it unless they were using, like you say, personally addressing the shooter by name, by number, or with profanity or something that, you know, requires you. If they're just cheering, like miss, miss, miss,
yeah,
well,
that's a
if no
Guys,
one's
that's a good
complaining, I
situational
wouldn't I
question.
wouldn't initiate anything on that.
You know,
guys, isn't it only a problem in the first half?
I mean, I
Teddy,
thought I thought as long as they're not chanting while the shooter is shooting and they're not under the baseline, then it's okay. So perfect example, they'll be like, such miss it, and that'll be the end of the cheer. Like I don't see the problem with that. I don't feel
right.
like that's antagonizing at all.
I don't see neither, and I don't see if they're on the other side, at the other end of the floor doing it as well.
Yeah.
But when they're in front of the shooter, and this is their chanting, they're chanting during the administration of the ball. Once the shooter has the ball, they're still chanting even when the shooter shoots the ball. But yeah,
But sir, yes, sir. But so you also identified that they are on the side. That's the first thing that he asked
no,
you. He
no,
said,
they're
"Are they
not
up to
not
the
really on the
baseline?"
side. They're not on the sidelines. They're
No, no,
behind.
no. You
Go ahead.
said
They're
they were on the
outside. They're
side. Not.
outside the lane boundary.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
That's
they're at the
different.
baseline outside the lane lines.
I think, for this scenario, there is no absolutely yes or absolutely no or all the time or never, but there are times to have a conversation, perhaps either with the cheer captain or perhaps the cheer coach to say, "Hey, can you help me out here?" Especially if it's a very perhaps intense game and it's just going to perhaps add fuel to the fire. But then there's times where it's just like, wow, if you blink and you miss it and, no one's bothered by it.
Well, this isn't a case too where the team is getting their butts handed to them, and now they're still, kind of taunting them. It's
Yeah,
slightly on that kind of level. You know what I'm saying?
yeah, yeah. And there's certainly there certainly could be a time and place to,
Okay,
have that conversation and make that request.
now back to the side, the bench. Now, once again, you're getting their butts handed to them. But now you're bit, D up, D up, D up. You're getting that kind of thing from the team that's dominating the game.
Yeah, again, if it's just D up and they're just cheering on their own, because now maybe you have subs for the team that's up by 35, 40 points, and maybe it's some bench players that they never get to be, they do all the cheering, and now it's the starters who want to cheer for the bench players. you know, it would be tough for me, especially if it's not anywhere near like on Sporting Comment, just saying, D up or defense or something like that to take away that experience for bench players, perhaps. So, um, but there are times where, yeah, if you have verbal stuff from the other team where if they are calling out an individual or something from the other team, especially if the other team's getting, a drubbing. But if they're just cheering on their teammates to play good defense, you
I
know,
do.
yeah,
I
I
do.
might lay off that one.
Okay.
So. No, really appreciate that. That the cheer question was that's a good situational one that it kind of depends on the situation. Good question.
I mean, because I'm good about talking to captains and making sure they allow us the baseline when we come down. Just watch out for us if they're cheering down. I always have that meeting, but I do now the situation where I'm mentioning now. Don't cheer while the guy's trying to shoot.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, thanks. That's good.
Yeah, you bet. Any other questions or Jim and Rick, any other notes for the good of the group?
One no note. A lot of guys know Sean Smith has the Super Bowl. He's the head ref on the Super Bowl.
Yeah, we covered that at the start, but yeah,
Oh, I'm sorry.
that's all.
I'm late. Sorry, man.
That's all right, Barry. Let's
Uh,
all, yeah, we're all
yeah,
rooting for Sean. He'll do us
Hey,
yeah.
proud.
I'm good with
Absolutely.
beginning the meeting and ending the meeting with congratulations to Sean Smith.
There you
I'm
go.
good with that.
Absolutely. That's
Congratulations, Sean.
appropriate.
Yeah, that's a great thing.
And you know what? I think that's the note to end on. I'm good
Yep.
with that. I'm gonna take a small fraction of pride, in watching that Super Bowl this year. I
Yeah,
think more so than most. So, um, everyone down the stretch, for those of you who get to work postseason. Good luck in the postseason. And if you have any questions, rules questions, interpretations, or whatever, Jim, Rick, myself, Randy, and John, we're here to help answer those questions, and work through those situations. But hopefully you found this report helpful. And if you are watching the recording, I hope you found it helpful as well. Please look at those resources when we get sent out so you can be prepared for when situations get tough in a game. So, with that, I thank you all. I really appreciate it, and good luck to you the rest of the way.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Shane.
Bye.
thank you.
Nice job, Shane.
Thanks.
Hey, Rick.